So I've got some upcoming projects where I need to bend some sheet metal like this. So let me show you how I built this tool to bend sheet metal like this. Alright, so material wise, this project is going to be consisting of a very few items. So basically what we've got here is 3 pieces of angle iron, like you can see over here. This is fairly thick, fairly steady angle iron. Now I've got 3 pieces of it. 2 would be for the bottom part, like you can see here. There's 1 piece. Other piece would still be in the vise that I've put it over there in. And the reason for this is I'll show you in a moment. Now the reason, or the main idea, is these 2 pieces of angle iron would be face to face or back to back like this, with a nice and flat top like that. And you'll see at the end here I made some cutouts, but we'll get to the cutouts in a little bit, and what the reason or the main purpose is if you don't already figure it out. Now the idea is you're going to put your sheet metal in here from the back. We're going to use another piece of angle iron like this. It's going to come on top like this. Well, just like that, more or less. And then at the end I'm going to attach these pieces of angle iron to the end of this one like so. I'm going to weld them together there, and the reason for that is so I've got a nice flat surface on top. And the reason for the nice flat surface that I'm going to have on top is this is where my tightening bolt is going to be, in order to have this thing pulled down and tighten from the bottom. Obviously there's going to be a bolt welded to the bottom part like this. This part will then go over it. There'll be a hole drilled into it, and with one on either side of these, you'll be able to pull this piece of angle iron down nice and solid, and it'll keep your sheet metal in place. So that is the main idea. Now the reason for, let me just move this one over a bit, or like so. The reason for these little grooves or cutouts at the end is my hinge system that I'm going to use. Now not specific to mine, but what I do have laying around here are these bullet hinges. Now I'm not quite sure, these are a bit rusted, I'll just clean them up a bit. But bullet hinges are basically round hinges like that. They don't have any flanges or wings, and they're going to work very nice for this. Now the diameter of this bullet hinge is 16 millimeters. So what you do want is you want the center of this bullet hinge to be on the corner of these 2 basically pieces of angle iron, so that if they swivel or if it bend up like that, they stay together, those 2 corners, and give you a nice sharp 90-degree corner. So in order to make those 2 stay together, the center point here of this bullet hinge has to be in line with that corner. Now how did I do that? I basically took the diameter of the bullet hinge, which is 16 millimeters, and I then only took off each of these 2 pieces, made an 8 millimeter mark from the corner, and cut the angle iron in that, and the same with the depth as well, from the corner to the bottom, 8 millimeters. So there's an 8 by 8 gap in between those now, and how this will then work is the bullet hinge will fit nicely in that gap like so. And if you can see, let's zoom in there a slight bit. So the idea is that the bullet hinge would then fit, and it would be in the middle, and when these 2 obviously get welded, the one piece of the bullet hinge will be welded to the front part, and the other piece of the bullet hinge would weld it to the back part, and that would cause this to fold up at an exact 90-degree angle, which is exactly what we want. But further I'm going to do then, so in the front I'm going to weld 2 handles. Now the purpose of the handles is mainly going to be so that I've got something to grab on this front part that's going to be bending up, and I'm going to have a handle so it can bend up nice and evenly without any problems. The bottom width of this piece of angle iron is wider than that piece, so if I put it in front like this so that it can hold down the metal where I want to bend it, the back part is going to fall over the back, so it's not going to be supported. So in order for me to prevent that, I'm going to take these plates, weld one in the middle, weld one on each end, just to keep this piece of angle iron, oh my goodness, just to keep this piece of angle iron level, so that it can be drawn down or tied down exactly at the right angle. So that is the main idea. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to weld in the bullet hinges on the two corners, like I've shown you. So these two are going to be welded in. And thereafter, I'm going to weld on these plates that I've spoken about. And once that is done, we'll start working on the arms and we'll see how this works. Another thing that I forgot to mention is the back piece of angle iron. I'm going to make a U shape at the bottom with some screws from the bottom so that it will be able to clamp onto my table or any work surface. So this is completely movable. Another purpose for these plates that I want to weld on there is once you clamp this onto your bench and you bend up the front part, this will give added support, so this whole thing doesn't want to swivel back and put too much pressure or stress on your bench. So after everything has been welded together and put together, and I've also painted it, let me take you through the process just once more. So these are the two bullet hinges at the two ends that I've welded onto the two pieces of angle iron. At the back, I've attached the three plates, which would be the support. Also, I've welded a nut, not a nut, a bolt upright onto each end of the back of the angle iron. The front part, you'll see if you lift it up, like so. I've attached these two pieces of rectangular tubing at the bottom for the arms of my handle. There's some welding reinforcements at the back for the bullet hinges. I've then attached a crossbar handle on top, like you can see over here. This is just a piece of square tubing, also some scrap metal leftovers. This is a nice and flat part now, but over the pieces of the angle iron and the flat part at the back, nice and flat completely, so that should not be a problem. Now at the bottom, what I've done to hook this onto my table is I've put two pieces more of the rectangular tubing and welded it onto the angle iron at the back, and this gap in between is the thickness of my specific table, which is where I'm mostly going to use it. Now I have checked and most tables would be able to fit in there, so I don't need any screws to clamp this onto the table, and that would also be one of the reasons why I'm going to use these holes for anchoring it to the table. So very simple. I've then only painted it black. So let's see how this is going to be attached to my bench. Let me quickly attach it here. If I put it on the table like that, let me move the camera back a bit so you can properly see. Onto the table like that. You'll see it hooks nicely over the edges. Now it does have a bit of a swivel because it's not held onto the table in front there. And that is where the next part of my build comes in. You'll see that there's a little hole sunken in the bench over there. Now what I've done, I've basically taken some of these inserted drive nuts. If you're not sure how to use this, I'll put a video in the link or in the link of the description of the video, or I'll put it on top as well so you can have a look at this. So I've put one of these into the bench, one over there, one on the other end, and then all I need to do is basically take a bolt and a washer like so. Nothing complicated at all. I will then only move this whole tool into position like this, and the bolt and nut will then simply go into the tool like that, securing it to the bench. Obviously you're going to take a socket or a wrench just to attach this. I'm only going to do the one for demonstration purposes, and as you see now, only this part moves and the back part is nice and solid onto the bench, and that's without me even tightening the other end. This obviously is at both ends. Let me show over there. For the other end, you just take another bolt and nut like this, also going to attach it to the bench, making it more sturdy. Now obviously it won't be able to lift up because of the U that I've made at the bottom, so it's nice and steady there. And now it won't, because of the weight of the handle, won't be able to flip forward either because it is now bolted to the bench, so it's nice and steady. So these two upright bolts that I've attached to the angle iron at the bottom, that is basically going to be to hold the clamp on top down. Now the clamp on top I have made using the other piece of angle iron like I've showed you before, with these two pieces of bigger angle iron welded to the end like so, with a hole on top, and that is obviously for the bolt to fit through. The little cutouts in front here, that is to make space for the little bullet hinge in front here. So this is now simply going to fit over these two bolts, and it can be bolted down to keep your sheet metal in place. Before I do put that on though, this is slightly weighty because it's a fairly thick iron. So to make life easier, not make this rest on the bottom when you untie it, I've taken basically some springs. I'm going to put, in my case, 2 springs on each bolt at the end. Now the reason for 2 is 1 is just a bit too short, so it still crashes at the bottom, and the weight is enough to keep this down. Now, if you're wondering where you're going to find springs like that, I'll show you a quick tip. What I've used is I've used one of these. Now, what this is basically what they use for electric fencing to tension the electric fencing wires. You see, if you pull it, it basically just pulls a spring. Now, what you can do is you can just disassemble this, simply take it apart like so, take out all the plastic pieces, and you've got a nice spring. These are extremely cheap and they're easy to come by. So, once we've got that part done, we've got the springs on there. I'm going to put this one back, that side and this side, and you'll see the weight of this thing alone already makes the bolt stick through on the top. So how am I going to bolt this down? So what I've done basically is I've taken a nut, 2 of them obviously, and I've only welded a piece of rod, steel rod, onto it at the one end to give it like a wing effect. So I've made 2 of these. I painted them black as well to go with the rest of the aesthetics of this whole thing. I'm then only going to put a washer on each end of this stand like that, and then all I'm going to have to do is basically attach these to the 2 ends like that, and basically almost to the bottom, maybe only having it being lifted a slight bit. Now the reason you only want it lifting a slight bit at this stage is obviously so you've got some space for the sheet metal to be fitted in. So this is basically then how it's going to work. You're going to put your sheet metal in from the back like this. It's going to come out in the front. You're going to, where you draw a line on it, if you don't have a line, you know where to bend it on the line. You're going to put this down, or basically hold it in place, clamp down these 2 nuts at the end, and because this is a fairly thick piece of angle iron, this will not move once it is clamped down. So that is the whole idea. So let's see how this works. So I'm now basically, it's on the line over there. Let's bend it upwards like so. Now you can decide at what angle you want. For instance, if I only want this specific project to be bent at a 45-degree angle, I only need to bend it 45 degrees. Now because this is an angle iron and it's 45 degrees, you can use a 90-degree angle and put it onto it. And when the angle here is 90 degrees, like so, bend it up a slight bit more. When this reaches 90 degrees in between, like so, then you know that your plate would be bent at 90 degrees as well. And that's about right there. So let's put it in the end here. And yes, that is a nice 90 degree or 45 degree angle. Because this is already 45 degrees, this only needs to be a 90 degree angle. This is only one example, but you can bend this at any angle. You can bend it to a 90 degree angle or anything of the sort. So there we go. We've got a nice 45 degree angle on the one end here. Obviously it's 135 degrees on top there. Bent nice and straight on the exact line that you drew without any problems. A nice corner, exactly the way that I wanted it. So obviously you can bend this further up to 90 degrees, or you can bend it at any other angle that you wish. You just have to measure the angle in between. The holes that I drew in the top of these angle irons at the points here, the holes are a slight bit bigger than the bolt itself. The reason for that is so that this can move forwards and backwards a slight bit. And the main reason for that is to accommodate various thicknesses of the sheet metal that you're going to bend. And this can also help a bit with the sharpness of the corners that you want to bend. If you've got thinner metal and you want to bend a slightly less sharper corner, a more rounded corner, you can just move this backwards a slight bit when you clamp it down. So it leaves a bit more of a bigger gap in front here. And that will give you a more blunt corner, if I can call it that. And if you move it to the front, then it will give you a more sharper, crisp 90-degree corner or whatever angle corner you need. So if you do like this project and you do like some of the other projects on my channel, be sure to like this video. Also consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so yet. Also stay tuned for some of my next upcoming videos where you will see what I'm going to do with these little templates or sheet metal things that I've cut and now started bending. You'll see what my next project is. Also, if you wish to support my channel, please have a look at the super thank icon down below. So until next time, thank you very much, guys.